Got video. Let me check the audio.
All right.
Got video. Let me check the audio.
All right.
All right, we should be good.
All right. From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Green Pack.
Chair for passengers.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes the candles to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Green Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Here again, another exciting week. We made it. Another week. Bring you the best of whatever the hell we're talking about. Best it can be.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he's. I don't know. This showed up in my Reddit feed where, did you see where General Mattis was making fun of Trump?
Oh, yeah. Mattis said something like, I earned my spurs in combat. He earned his in the firmament. Yeah, it's something.
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah. That was probably the best one, but the other one was like, he talks about, he was saying like he was the most overrated general of all time. But also Trump said that Meryl Streep was the most overrated actress of all time. And so I think I'm in pretty good company.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole weird world. I don't even know where to begin with what happened this week. I can't take the measure of it. There were so many bad moments. It's hard to put it all into perspective.
I was already pre-embarrassed. I didn't even bother to read that note he wrote to, was it Rodgan, or how do you say his name?
Oh, Recap Erdogan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard about that. I don't understand what that's all about. Because I know, like, what little I know is, and I've known this for a long time, is that the Turks would be okay with committing genocide against the Kurds, and that's been a feud that goes back, I don't know, a zillion years, and the Kurds were in northern Iraq, and they were our staunchest ally in Iraq, and we gave them a lot of support, and they gave us a lot of support, and then they just pulled all our troops out, so Syria can be divided up amongst the Russians and the Turks. And it's like, okay, what is this doing for us exactly? Why did we leave? But I don't know. It's like, I knew that was a bad idea. I knew the Kurds were going to get slaughtered.
And then there's been in video games and NBA, there's been weird stuff with China.
Oh yeah, don't support the Hong Kong people, or the Chinese government will basically ban your products from their country.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's clever.
Because they had Blizzard was having a tournament with Hearthstone. It's like it's like an online card game that they run. And one of their players won, and then he gave like a support Hong Kong speech, like at the end of during his like victory speech essentially. Mm-hmm. And then they took his winnings away. They fired the hosts of the event, who were literally ducking under a table to avoid being associated with them.
This was in China?
I'm not sure where the tournament took place, but it was one of their streamed tournaments.
Yeah, fuck those guys in China. You know what? Not afraid to say it. There's plenty of nasty memes about, what do they call him? President G, Premier G, Supreme Leader G, whatever. There's all kinds of nasty stuff. Put it all over your Facebook about them. They're bad. They're doing, when it comes to free speech, the Chinese are unrepentant sinners.
Yeah.
Not the Chinese people.
Well, the
Communist government of China. Fuck them.
Oh shit! Well, like the Congress sent a letter to Activision Blizzard, like condemning them for like essentially like
Standing up for freedom, supporting
Yeah.
people, the Jews. Yeah, yeah.
But it was like two sides. It was like I forget the Republican representative, but it was like there's that and AOC. Like both wrote a letter. It's like when AOC and this guy are like teaming up, like you fucked up.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Well, I do. It's money. Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand it, but
Well, because I was listening to a podcast they were talking about it, and here's like the weird thing. So I guess like Activision Blizzard, like China makes up like I don't know, is 10%, would that seem high? It wasn't necessarily like they could do without China, essentially. Like they're
Yeah,
not China's not their bottom line.
probably
but-
take a 10-15% hit. Yeah,
But what they want to preserve is like the future, like when like the potential of what it could be in the future. So like like they could lose China now and like they wouldn't be hurting really, but they're just like trying to preserve a billion audience for the future.
yeah. Well,
Um,
you gotta stand up for what's right, and if that's your bottom line,
and then of course they canceled a bunch of things because they were going to bring Overwatch to Switch, and they're going to have an event, and they said, "Oh fuck that, we're not going to see what people do with the public event with us right now." But yeah, then the other fun thing is in the NBA because they're doing preseason games in China.
yeah.
And there was wasn't a GM. He was it might have been the GM of the Houston Rockets. Like tweeted in support of the Hong Kong protesters, and then like LeBron James got out there and was saying like I don't think he knew what he was talking about and stuff like that. So LeBron James just like, and then like you're so, and they're like bringing up quotes where like LeBron James is like quoting Martin Luther King about like the freedom of speech and shit like that. But then somebody else brought up is like how the NBA like because the players have like a lot of power in the NBA, so they get to be a lot more outspoken than any other sport.
Right.
And so it seems curious that LeBron James would balk on this until he realized, oh yeah, he probably has like $120 million deal with Nike.
Oh yeah, you just see how it matters. Because there's no other reason to support a communist police state. It's and that stuff in Hong Kong is still crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
There's videos all the time of the police charging and people still doing their homework and protesting.
well, and they've made it like made a law that you can't like hide your face in public.
Yeah.
So then people started printing out pictures of LeBron James and like stapling it to to their face.
Good for them.
So yeah, that's weird.
Good for the. Yeah, that is weird. It's not. I mean, it's just one of the many things that it's weird. But it really shows like where, how controlled that we are by money from over there.
Yeah. And also the weird. It was Mark Rubio. It was Mark Rubio and AOC that wrote that letter condemning Activision Blizzard.
It's weird. And what was her? Mark Rubio, I get. What was her spin on it?
I didn't read the letter. Basically, it was about like condemning freedom of speech, taking the guy's money away and shit like that, all in an effort to please the Chinese government. But yeah, like the extra weird bit of that is that on the left it's probably going to be about this freedom of speech and like and maybe both on the right about democracy or whatever. But on the right, it's also an excuse to just just hate Chinese in general. Like now it's just like, yeah, we can just do that. They can pretend they're behind the protesters, but hate them at the same time because they're Chinese.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything to add to that. I just thought that was an interesting twist on it, where
Oh yeah,
strange bedfellows with the fight
But-
against.
it doesn't surprise me. Can't say I'm surprised. We've heard about what they call that in China, the young people now, like Generation Zen.
No.
Yeah, because the young people in China, like, they don't defy the Chinese government to the point they will get arrested, but they're kind of, their answer to it is to be real sarcastic about things,
Yeah.
be very unpatriotic, but in a passive way. Like, we're not going to actively do things because that'll bring guys kicking down your door and stuff, but we're just going to be real passively bland and blasé about that. Like, we're just going to, just view that with very thin look in our eyes, like, yeah, whatever, I'll salute the flag only because you're making me. It's not because I care.
I can't see the gun. I just know it's there. So let me,
Yeah.
let me give a haphazard salute.
Let me pretend to give a shit. Yeah, that's actually a thing. It wasn't very well articulated on when I heard about it, but because they always try to make these like generational judgment calls on what this generation in this country or that country's going to do, and some of it's like, maybe there's truth to that, and a lot of it's just a bunch of, what do they call that, like pop psych, nonsense. I mean, people are going to do whatever puts food on their table and makes them happy. That's what they're going to do. Because we have, we have a lot of passive patriotism here too. It's like, okay, I'm not going to make waves. It's not just going to stand up at the national anthem, but maybe it's not how I feel. I mean, that's not how I feel. For me, it's like that.
Yeah, I think because it's China, there's only like this haphazard support for like democracy in China right now. It's like it's kind of like a cheering section. There's not like we're not actively like dropping in weapons and paraphernalia and other things to like help them.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not sending, funneling weapons into Hong Kong.
We're not doing to China what we did to South America.
Yeah, we're not poisoning their crops. Forming weird political alliances with the bad people we like.
This wasn't like what was like 3 years ago, where like all our Chinese assets were just executed in one swift move at night.
Yeah, there was something weird like that. Yeah, there was, because they, I don't know, they got information somehow, and I'm not sure if it was infiltration, if it was someone selling them stuff, I don't know. It's very hard to run to spy in those countries. I mean, that's why we don't have any idea what goes on in North Korea, because the only intelligence we get out of there is what we get from satellites.
And the YouTube React page.
Yes.
You ever seen that? Where it's like,
Oh.
it's like North Koreans react, and it's like people who have been like exfiltrated from North Korea, and it's like North Koreans tried chocolate for the first time.
Oh, it's like really sad and poignant.
Yeah.
Like
It's
these
like,
people-
oh, this is wonderful. We have nothing like this back in our country. It's part entertaining, part pure propaganda against North Korea.
We don't have food. Well, I remember like that one documentary that they did where they actually filmed it in North Korea, but it was like guerrilla documentary, mainly done by South Koreans that were infiltrating cameras in,
Yeah.
and like they had this two girls that were watching these movies on a little portable, like a DVD player with the screen built in it, like you flip it up.
Yeah.
And they were Western movies, and they were asking like, "What happens if you get caught with these?" Like, "Oh, we'll get killed." It's like that's why we only have like one or two movies at a time, because we could hide those if someone kicked in the door, but we don't have like hundreds of them. So they said there's like places you go and get these, and you like bring back one, and you get another one. It's like, oh, that's so weird. Such a weird universe. They say they don't get to watch. I forget where they were, because they weren't like in the capital or something. But they said they don't get to watch as many movies as they like, because the power's only on for like 5 hours
Yeah.
a day and stuff like that. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's what Drew said when he was Drew Scanlon, formerly of Giant Bomb, now a Cloth Map,
Oh,
and the
okay.
Puppies of Chernobyl video. Yeah, he does. He went to North Korea on a vacation one time.
Yeah, that's an interesting vacation choice.
Yeah, well, he goes to a lot of weird places for vacations, but yeah, you can set it up through a Chinese like vacation thing, and then they take you there, and like they tell you when and when you can't like take pictures of things.
Yeah, don't you have like a couple people with you,
Oh, it's a whole bus. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
but they speak English like
Yeah,
very
yeah.
well, and but yeah, they because I think I saw the one where the guy went. What was that ship of ours that they captured? The Pueblo,
Yeah.
one of them, and they were talking, and it's like, this is your ship, and these are the crimes your country committed, and like, what do you think about this? And the guy was getting real close to him, like, because he didn't have any choice but to say, yeah, that's just terrible. It's like, yeah, I don't want to go to your fucking gulag, so whatever you want, man. But yeah, it's a fascinating country.
Yeah, there's stuff like they have like they have a lot of people just like clean the streets, so it's like huge streets that look really clean but like no cars to drive on it. In the hotel they were at, like they just had like weird like science things on the wall that weren't connected or did anything. They just were there to like look sciencey, like, oh, look
Yeah.
how advanced we are. It was just like, might as well have been the set to like Alien or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh.
they love that kind of weird pantomime there.
That's where Drew had gasoline clams,
Oh, okay.
where you cook clams by just pouring gasoline on them. Well, it might be more involved than that, but yeah, you cook with gasoline to open up the clam.
correctly.
Yeah. What was it? There's something like they had some like Fanta there, and like the label on it was like soda juice or something like that. What was the other bizarre stuff? So much of it was bizarre. Oh yeah, like all the maps there are. It's not just like of North Korea. It's like of a united Korea, and like, they like pretend like, oh, we own all this country, and like one day we'll all be united. But that's how they depict North Korea, as like all of Korea.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah.
There's
You see
like,
the satellite images, right?
What's
At
that?
night,
uh,
you can see all the lights, and you've got like South Korea is lit up like New York City. You've got the parts of China, they're lit up really bright, and the other parts, the other countries are lit up, and North Korea is like dark. Yeah, that's. I'm trying to think of what books I think the one book I read was called The Hermit Kingdom, but it was like the whole history of North Korea, which is bizarre. And also, you don't realize what a huge part the United States played in, like, why North Korea is the way it is, and how unflinchingly brutal the Korean War was. And it was like, oh yeah, that was terrible. Like,
yeah, like it was more artillery used in the Korean War than the entirety of World War II. And like all their cattle were killed.
yeah,
And so they got, and because embargoes or whatever, they couldn't like import tractors, so they got good at just building their own tractors. I'm not sure they're good tractors, but they pride themselves on being able to build tractors to farm the land, because we don't have ox to farm the land anymore.
yeah. There's a lot of what else? We essentially, like, when the peace treaty was called, when we went to the UN, we essentially said that country's going to starve. We're going to make it impossible for them. We're going to sanction some things, but it's like we'll send you the engine with no spark plugs in it, like those kind of things.
Yeah.
And it was, we just made sure that they it was just terrible stuff, and it's still going on. Like, it's never stopped. fact that they have nuclear weapons is like, it's weird and amazing. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, they have like a space museum that just has a bunch of lies about like them being like on the moon and Mars and shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Love that shit. In the Gorilla documentary, they show, because they have this huge national army, of course.
Yeah.
Because an army is actually a good job to have there, because you don't have to break rocks with a hammer for 24 hours to get a ball of rice. But the things they don't want you to see, because they'll have a lot of soldiers standing around, but then as soon as they think the cameras are off, those guys will like take off their army uniforms and they'll start baling hay and running farm equipment and stuff, because that's really what they do in the army. Like, because the one guys, the AKs they had or whatever, they were wood. They were just painted wood. They just want a lot of guys standing around with guns. But they don't trust people with guns there. So, I mean, they have a lot of them, but they're just not. Then they have like the scary special forces that the Russians like trained them up. It's like, we want the most frightening devils in the world. Now, they never do anything. But if they were ever unleashed, it's like, oh, these guys are crazy. Like, I forget where. I think the Russians, like, they just constantly have Russians on staff to teach them how to be like, you know, the most insane, like how to carry a nuclear backpack weapon. Just shit that even the Russians. It's like, yeah, we can come up with a training regime. All the Spetsnaz guys are like, how would you do this? Okay, let's let the training North Koreans do it. How to attack a submarine with divers, and, like stuff that you know, sink an American submarine with a torpedo that you drive into.
Essentially, just training him for an action movie, an improbable action movie.
Yeah, unrealistic scenarios that hundreds of millions of dollars are thrown into keeping these guys that frightening. And they go into South Korea and do stuff all the time. There's all kinds of low-level terrorist shit that goes on. We don't hear much about it over here, but it does go on. I think they keep it at a certain, like, everything there is about levels. Of like, we'll keep it at this level because if we go here, like, so we have all kinds of military bases in South Korea. Now, if any of those ever got attacked by North Korean agents, that would not be good. So that doesn't happen. They just attack the South Korean stuff. But yeah, it's a strange stalemate.
Also, apparently, they're prideful of having the largest glass factory in the world.
That's a new one on me. I didn't know that one.
Yep. It's just you. I saw a picture like Drew took of it. And it's just like, I mean, it's just a factory, but then you just see like a bunch of green broken glass, like a fucking sandcastle of it outside of the factory.
Yeah. Yeah, they. It's a weird place. It's like a fantasy world that came to life. It's like, this is what. Remember that evil kid in the Twilight Zone that could make anything happen?
Yeah.
It's like, what if 3 generations of that had a nation? It's like we're just gonna, but he couldn't really make things happen. Like in the Twilight Zone, the kid could really do evil stuff. In this world, it's like, no, but we're gonna say we did it, and that's almost as good. And who's gonna say different? You know, who gets executed by flamethrower first? No one. Everyone's like, cool.
I stopped that movie from getting released in theaters.
Did they really, or did Sony, or well, did they just back away from the controversy?
Yeah, I mean, they still released it on YouTube, but like they didn't release it in theaters. But
Yeah, I saw it eventually.
yeah,
I mean, it was fun.
yeah, it was one of those things. Like, was this actually a good movie? But like, you felt like it was like your patriotic duty to like support the movie because like fuck North Korea.
Yeah.
but like, but then also it's like, oh, a corporation like made you do that. It's like, oh, this is like, I
Yeah.
feel bad, but oh, well, jingoism.
What was it really? Which large propaganda entity was lying to me? The vulgar North Koreans or the subtle, slick Sony marketing? You really got us on that one. It's like, this is an okay movie. We could make it into a cultural phenomenon. How? Having a fake war with North Korea? Good idea. Ship that out. Hell, we have a whole presidency now constructed around principles like that.
Yeah.
It's like, let's do fake things. Let's say we're doing real things, and then back off right away.
Yeah, I saw an interesting, because like I watched too much gun content on YouTube, so they suggest more gun things.
Yeah.
So I saw an interesting new. So Sig came out. It's called the P365. It was like their ultra compact pistol.
Okay.
It's about the size of was it a Glock 34? They're like ultra compact pistol.
Yeah,
I
those small ones. Yeah.
yeah, and I guess like, so it actually has like the same form factor of a Glock 34. I'm guessing that's the right one. I don't actually know. It's a Glock something, whatever, the small one.
Micro Glock. Yeah.
It has the same exact form factor of it, except I think it holds 2 more bullets because like the magazine is like slightly, not necessarily double stacked, but you can add another bullet in there or 2.
Semi-staggered.
Yeah, semi staggered.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was all the rage. I think it had some problem recently, or like when they first came out, and now they're fine. But now they had they call, what is it? They have a new one that came out. It's called the P365 SAS, which is something anti-snag. I can't remember what the first S stands for.
Okay.
And so there's nothing on it that can snag. So there's like all the like the side release and stuff like that. It's all like kind of inside of the gun, like not inside, but it's like recessed inside of it. So there's like nothing on the outside that can snag. And the takedown lever is a screw, so there's no lever on the outside. You have to have a screw. And there's no sights that extend outward from the top of the gun. There's just like this weird like dot thing that like there's like a circle, and then like you kind of put this little dot in the middle of the circle as you're looking for it, and like that's the way you know you're aiming forward for the gun.
Okay.
But it's like it's like inside the top of the gun. It's not like it's not on top. It's not extruding out the top of it. It's like a part of the top of the gun.
Huh. Yeah, I'm looking at this now. This looks like the Kimber like carry melt.
Yeah.
They did that where they rounded a bunch of stuff off. Oh, that's a strange thing.
But yeah, I thought that sight was weird, but the video I watched, they said it kind of sucked. But like, for what it's intended to do, which is like shooting somebody 3 feet away from you, it's totally fine.
Was that Hickok that did that one?
No, that was was it TFB? It's like, I think it's some magazine, and they'd have like a YouTube thing. I can't remember what TFB stands for. It's like something Firearm Bulletin or something.
Oh, okay.
The guy who does it, he shows up in like every other gun YouTube channel eventually.
Oh.
Like he's on In Range occasionally and stuff like that.
Huh. Yeah, I knew the people were doing that, but didn't know they were quite getting that weird.
But yeah, it's
I've
your.
never had a 6. No reason why. I just never got
Oh,
around.
they're expensive, but
Yeah.
you know, you fired mine, you fired Andrews, but
Yeah, I mean,
it's
they're
not.
nice
It's not.
guns.
Yeah, it's not like it's beating your Kimber or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're all expensive. They're all expensive.
Well, I mean, mine was, it's like $600, but like Andrews was like $1,200
Yeah.
for a used one. But it was a fucking real nice gun. But so
Yeah, it's a nice gun. It was definitely worth, probably worth the money.
yeah.
So I never picked up that Kimber revolver. I wanted to get that, but
Oh, have they not made revolvers before, or is it
no,
a
that was their
special
first
one?
one.
What's special about it?
It's as small as my Smith and Wesson. It holds 6 shots, and if you want to, if you hate yourself, you can fire the 357 Magnum. 38 and 357 are essentially the they can be interchangeable. So they, yeah. And I wanted one because I like revolvers, but I got too much money going out.
Yeah.
Car insurance and everything.
I mean, yeah. When's the last time you shot your gun? So.
Yeah, that's another thing. I don't shoot a gun enough to justify it.
Yeah, I forgot to like send mine out to get for
the voluntary recall.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I can still send it out because it was like almost a year ago I put that thing because I don't think they have the recall anymore. But yeah, now it's just sitting there. Should probably get rid of it, but oh well.
Yeah. Probably see what's going on
I think I just get a better trigger and then whatever that thing that will keep it from if you fucking boomerang it at the ground.
there.
It'll
Sear
set off.
drop mechanism. Whatever. Just don't drop your gun. How about that? Don't throw it around. It's not a toy. So we got some video games coming out. 'Tis the season.
Yeah.
Got some games coming out. What are you looking forward to on October 25th?
Oh well, I mean, I'll probably more interested in Outer Worlds.
Okay.
I'll probably end up getting Modern Warfare as well, but I don't know. I've been kind of down on the last bunch of Call of Duty games.
Aren't they kind of going back to Origin on this one?
Well, I mean, technically World War II was where that game started, and 2 years ago they did a World War II game, but
Yeah.
but this one
Well,
is
I meant the one where it's like with the SAS guys and
yeah,
the real popular.
yeah, with like Soap and
Yeah.
those guys. Yeah, I think it's essentially a reboot because I don't think this continues the Modern Warfare storyline from when it first came out. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. So I think this is just a reboot with like the same people, and then like I have no idea about what the storyline is, but at least there is a single player story this time around, unlike last time.
Okay.
Like last year's was just a multiplayer game that also had a battle royale component,
Okay.
which was interesting, but there was like 400 other battle royales, so that was just kind of like, it ended up being an also ran. So I'm sure it'll look amazing. Now I just have to figure out like what platform I want to get it on,
Yeah.
because I'd like to get it for PC, but the thing about getting Call of Duty games on PC is multiplayer sucks.
Oh.
Because either there's not enough people, or the people there are way too fucking good.
Yeah.
Or they're just cheating. I don't know. Both. Whatever.
Yeah.
They're better than me, and they're cheating.
Yeah, you could beat me just playing this game normally. Yeah? Fuck.
But then the PS4 version has like an extra mode in it that won't come out on the other versions for like a year.
Okay.
So like, do I get the PS4 version? But also like, I don't like playing shooters on that controller. So.
Surprised no one's made an Xbox controller for the PS4.
Oh, there's conversion kits.
Oh, okay.
There's like ones where you can get a cable or whatever, and it'll just like, you just plug it into your Xbox controller and it converts everything over for you.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't bothered to do that.
Yeah,
Bet.
those are definitely the small hands controllers, the PS4s.
Well, the thing I don't like about it is like, it's like playing a first-person shooter. That's where you're gonna probably get like the most, like divergent, like where you're gonna move the most with the sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like how close the sticks are together, and I feel like my hands are cramping the way, because like it's like you're doing this, like on
Okay.
top of it. It's like it's. No, I actually had to fucking go it. But yeah, it's like my hands are like this, and so
Yeah.
they're kind of like close together, and it just like my hands feel cramped. So it feels like you're like holding the controller like this, like you're trying to strangle somebody. Whereas with an Xbox controller, like it just lays in your hands,
Right.
and the way the sticks are offset, like I just like the offset sticks like a lot. I don't know why. They just like that just somehow works in my brain better. You're not like accidentally mirroring movement from your other thumb because it's like in a completely different position.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that. I always liked the Xbox controllers.
Yeah. But yeah, because that PlayStation controller is totally fine. It's also just like, it's been that way since like '99 when those first games come out.
Yep. So when's Death Stranding coming out?
I believe that's the first week in November.
Okay.
So get to use your bodily fluids to fight the weird demon things.
I was watching. I've watched all those trailers.
Oh, did you watch the gameplay thing that they did?
Yeah, I've seen all that.
Whereas
stuff.
they're like interviewing him and he's like saying all this weird shit.
Yeah. The thing that stands out the most to me is like they finally do a trailer. It's like, oh, there's just a smidgen of coherency here. It's like Norman Reedus. He ends up at the White House,
Yeah.
and it's his wife, and then some dude in a luchador mask talking about, we're gonna bring America back, and they were talking about all this stuff, and
Was the guy in the luchador mask, was that Die Hard Man?
something like that. I don't know.
There's literally a guy named Die Hard Man.
Yeah, it seemed to be. Again, I don't.
and fucking Nicholas Winding Refn's in the movie. I think he's like a shop guy. He's like the shopkeeper or something.
Yeah.
As long as Guillermo del Toro is in it. So it seems like, nobody's ever going to go give Kojima money to make a movie, but he seems to have like acquired all these director friends. Like, you should really make a movie. It's like they won't give me the money to do that, but they will give me more money to do this.
Yeah. I can do this. But yeah, so I've watched just like all the videos. I haven't done any like further research, but just watching those videos is like, oh, this is gonna be bizarre and wild and self-indulgent, and that's fine. It's this crazy.
Yeah.
We've just gone to Crazyville, which is fine.
And yeah, I love to see like the politics of it, because like obviously this is kind of like, well, I'm not, there's, because like when you hear him talk about it, he makes a lot of like comparisons to Japan and like mountains in Japan, and like because like the world is like in some sort of apocalypse, and like nature has kind of taken over a lot of the world that's been fractured apart.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of like that beauty is like sort of like an interpretation of like nature in Japan, but then there's also like it's all about a fractured America trying to be brought back together, and like how what's Kojima's take on America?
Yeah, it's it looked intriguing from what I saw. So.
And whatever the fuck Mads Mikkelsen's doing in that whole fucking game.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand any of it. It just seems like people talking seriously and having dialogue with this bizarre background of, kind of reminded me of David Lynch in a way, where people are carrying on and there's crazy shit going on in the background, or like guys wearing masks and his ethereal wife who's like a hologram or a ghost, or we don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah, and what's the president? Or no, is it? Oh shit! There's like some character names like something like Bee Mother or something like that, and it looks like Trisha Helfer, like from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
But it's actually I think it's Lindsay Wagner. Like she was like in the 70s or whatever. She was the original Bionic Woman.
Yes.
And so they basically, like, I think Kojima like must have had a hard on for her when in the 70s, and basically like, we're gonna make you young again. But like she's the voice actor of her young self in the video game.
Yeah, it was. I watched that and I was like, oh, okay. Well, this is a step forward from just the wildly incoherent like babies and evil creatures and.
I love the one where like Mads Mikkelsen was just like coming out of like some weird oil with like skeletons that look like they're like from the Vietnam War with like Garand rifles aiming down sights with eyes they don't have.
Yeah.
Also with those weird helmets with like the Russian where it has like the 4 binoculars on top of it. And it's like the weird night vision shit.
Yeah, the Russian. Yeah, the 3-dimensional Russian night vision stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think whether Death Stranding is good or not, it'll probably be worth the interest it has.
Yeah, I mean,
It'll be an interesting failure or it'll be a really cool game. Who knows?
Yeah, those games with like 10-year development cycles, or
I think they did this one in like about 4 or 5.
Was it? Oh, it seems like they've been talking about it since 2015.
Maybe. I can't remember when he got acquired. I mean, it was for Kojima. This is probably a fairly quick development
Yeah.
because they usually give him like all the time he needs to make his video games. Because every time he comes out with a video game, it makes more money than the previous video game. So,
Yeah, how he knows what he's doing.
but also all those video games were called Metal Gear Solid, and this one isn't. So
Yeah.
that can be a problem sometimes. Because like Kojima, forever he wanted after Metal Gear Solid 2, he didn't want to make Metal Gear Solid games anymore. But
Yeah.
if he wanted to make a game at all, it had to be called Metal Gear Solid. So he kind of just made different games that just encapsulated the Metal Gear Solid mythos
Yeah.
and characters and all that shit.
Yeah.
And he like worked on some other stuff too. Like there's some Game Boy Advance games he made. There was I can't remember what it was called. It was some weird game where it had a light sensor on it, and there was like a vampire in the game. Where you had like 2 different characters, and depending on like whether how light or dark it was, it gave your character more or less power.
Yeah.
So like he wanted you to go outside with your GBA to play a video game. But those early GBA screens were shit, so if you were outside in the light, you couldn't see the fucking game.
Right.
They weren't backlit at the time, so. And then like he made that PT demo that was going to be the Silent Hills game that was going to be starring Norman Reedus, but then but Konami canceled all that, and now that game just basically lives in the hard drives with a few people that actually downloaded it before Konami like took down the download link.
Huh.
Have you ever seen YouTube videos of PT?
No, I haven't. We
Oh.
talked about it before.
Yeah, you should probably check it out. It's pretty interesting. It's like very highly detailed, like hallway, and you just kind of like you just walk around this hallway, but things change, and it's like really fucking freaky, and things get really fucking weird, and there's just like this constant. It's like it's how it uses repetition and then breaks the repetition is really interesting.
Oh, okay.
And there's a bloody bag that talks to you.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because why not?
Yeah, I don't know much about Outer Worlds other than it's vaguely Fallout-esque from Obsidian. We usually make very good story-driven games, but there's usually some technical snafus with their game, but we'll see.
Oh, okay.
The last game, I believe they did the first South Park video game. Well, not the first one. That South Park: The Stick of Truth. Like that was, I think that was their last full game they did. And that was good.
Yeah, I've never seen that one.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, that's pretty good. It's I'd say like the presentation is better than the second one. The second one was probably a better like RPG. It was a better game, but it was not as good story, and the jokes weren't as funny. But the Stick of Truth is really good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know my son played it a lot. So.
Saw some more wrestling this week.
Okay, what'd you see?
I saw that AEW Dark match with Joey Janela and Kenny Omega. That was pretty crazy. They basically put on a pay-per-view level show but on YouTube for free.
Huh.
It was an unsanctioned match, which basically means like anything can happen. What was the crazy? So there's one. The guy set up a table on the outside. He like inverted the stairs that lead up to the ring, and then he set up a table. Without he didn't undo the legs. He just like set up the table flat in between the ring stairs and then like the ring itself.
Okay.
But instead of like the table, like the flat side sitting up, it was like the underneath carriage was sitting straight up.
Oh, that sounds safe.
And so at one point, he throws him over the ropes and he lands right on the that.
He didn't get gored.
I mean, like his back was really fucked up. You can see a bunch of red marks on the back of it. But yeah, he didn't. He didn't get stabbed or he wasn't bleeding or anything. But yeah, I mean that's something you could take. You could fall into that and be like relatively okay, but that's still some smarts.
Yeah, it's not like it's sharpened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice, blunt stab into your skin. Blunt trauma there.
There's one where so sometimes it's a spot I've seen on the indie scenes a couple times where they grab like chairs and they set up the chairs like facing each other, so it's kind of like a platform of the chair seats, and then
Yeah.
they'll suplex them off the top rope and then like into those chairs.
Oh, okay.
So here they did it where they flip it around the other way, so it's like the spines are touching each other, and that's what they threw the guy on.
Okay. Double strength of chairs, huh?
Now, if you watch it, they kind of did it in like a fairly safe way, but like when you see it the first time, you're like, "Oh fuck, don't do that!" Oh no, and then they do that.
You're not gonna do. Yep, you are. Oh.
So yeah, that was a really good match. It's on YouTube. It's in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
It's pretty long for a match, but that's kind of Kenny Omega's known for really long matches because they usually build. That's kind of what he takes away from New Japan, because that's why New Japan does wrestling matches. It's kind of like slow builds.
Oh, okay.
Slow build, tell a story, crescendo at the end. Everybody's happy. And then I saw more of NWA Power. It had its second episode. It's still really good. And it's only an hour long, and it's edited, so it's not live. So it's just like really snappy. It's like really fun to watch. Like,
Just crammed in there, huh?
yeah, it's they had fake commercials. And I don't know, like they're like most of they're based on old wrestlers. So these are like from the 70s. So like I don't even know who they are, but like there's one who it's like come on down to Tolt's Waffle House and Tire Irons, because apparently he just likes waffles and tire irons, which I'm guessing like when he was a wrestler, his tire iron was probably featured somewhere in his matches or something. And then there's like I think it's actually like a real commercial, but it's also kind of played for laughs for a wrestling school from like some old school wrestler.
Oh yeah.
There's a really good promo where like he was a wrestler, so he's been around for a long time. But he kind of just got kicked out of WWE after a while. He had a pretty good run. His name's Damian Sandow. That's not his actual name. That's his name that I know him from WWE. He had an interesting like gimmick because he's like a joke wrestler.
Yeah.
And his gimmick was he was essentially being a stunt double for another wrestler, and for a wrestler called the Miz, and so he's like changed his name to Damien Mizdow. And so here he comes out and to applause. It's like, oh, he's like, welcome back. Yeah, chants like that stuff, and then he's like thanking everybody. And it's like, all right, in order to be the best wrestler that I need to be. And he's like he's at a stand with an announcer and like the crowd's in front of him. He's like, I'm gonna need to ask something of you. And he's like, and like the announcer's like, what's that? I need you not to look me in the eye. and then everyone starts laughing, and he's like, no, no, this isn't a joke, don't look at it. And then like he like kind of forces the announcer's head away from him. He's like, don't look at me. And then like the announcer's confused, and then like when he goes to ask his next question, he kind of like brings his head over to the microphone and like is looking at him. And then like when somebody in the crowd like, don't look at him.
Oh god.
So yeah, it's just a fun, and like I said, it's only an hour long, so it's pretty good. And yeah, like they're totally going for that '70s aesthetic, so that's an interesting thing on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those retro themes.
Yeah, and then fucking Billy Corgan's behind the whole thing, which has had an additional layer of weirdness.
Yeah, that makes it extra weird.
He's never on screen, but like they do on their YouTube channels, they do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and like they here's this dumb wrestling stuff, and then here's Billy Corgan eloquently describing everything that's going on.
Yeah, I didn't. Billy Corgan. What? I forget whose podcast he did. It was years ago, but I didn't realize how much he was into like conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah.
Like just not all one direction. He's not like Ted Nugent or something where it's all right wing stuff, but it's just like everything's a conspiracy.
Was he like that way that Dan Aykroyd, where it's like, is Dan Aykroyd crazy, or is he just like more willing to believe things?
Yeah, what I got from that Dan Aykroyd, and I'd known this about Dan Aykroyd because he's always like kind of been entertained this notion of this magical world, but with him it seems fun,
Yeah.
but also serious. He's like, hey, I'm gonna give this. You can laugh if you want to, but I got proof. I've seen some of this stuff. I've had these experiences. No one can tell me what it's not. And so and it's like, oh, he's kind of passionate about this, but he's also not to the point where he's like willing to fist fight over it either. It's like, okay, believe me or not, I don't care. And so yeah, I think it's with Billy, it seemed to get a little serious and then sort of like whoa, because I know a lot of people that are adamant about all kinds of conspiracy theories, and if you even slightly challenge them, it's like you're trying to say, oh, God isn't real. So you got to reel them back a little bit, like, oh, come on. Okay, listen to what you're saying. Think about the world we're living in and how we've lived in this world for as long as we've been alive. Think about what you're telling me. Calm down.
My favorite one.
Saying you're full of shit, but I'm saying I don't necessarily agree with you on everything.
My favorite one is the guy in the military, like at my unit, that like 9/11 was an inside job, and it's like, aren't we part of that inside job? What?
You were in the black hat.
And you've been in this for like 4 years. You know, like how incompetent things are run. There's no way that happened.
My favorite was somebody made a meme. It was like a guy holding like an AR-15, and it was about gun control. And it was saying something like, you say you need this gun to protect yourself against the government, and then you put a banner on the top of your Facebook page that says support the troops. You know what you're talking about is shooting those guys, don't you? So which is it? Are you going to fight the government or support the troops? Because at the end of the day, you're talking about shooting those guys. It's not going to be other troops that show up. It's these guys.
Yeah, I saw one of those kind of like that where it's like, you better respect the flag of the government that I'm gathering weapons against.
Yeah. Oh, the 9/11. I found a 9/11 guy. Because I thought that had just kind of. I gave up on 9/11 years ago because this wasn't. It's like, okay, this was fun. President or whatever, but now it's kind of dumb. What it's like Obama did 9/11 now, and then Trump's president. And it's like I don't believe this guy can handle ordering his own lunch. Run a conspiracy. So, but yeah, I still ran into a guy like a year ago, just was going real hard on 9/11. I was like, oh man, this is retro. I haven't heard this shit in 10 years. It's like, what new developments have there been? It's like, had almost 20 years to investigate this. What do we have? And it's just the same stuff,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it's new to him, so.
No, I think he was a believer from way back.
Oh, okay.
He was one of the firsters. Like, as soon as it happened, this is a conspiracy. Okay, how?
He was that first YouTube view on Loose Change.
Yeah, he got the first. He's one of those guys that watch, because I watched Spare Change. I've watched all 12 iterations of it, even where they removed the UFO stuff in the later one.
I didn't know that happened. That sounds
yeah,
amazing.
Oh yeah, the planes were holograms. Well, I mean, it doesn't say that this is definitely what happened, but it included this stuff.
Okay.
Like, they were holograms, and it was really explosives, and the holograms were projected. Maybe it was UFO technology that we stole, that we did, and that stuff was all removed once it got serious. Once people started taking these guys seriously. But oh yeah, like, I love Loose Change, especially like the ones where they got professional narrators and they really cleaned it up like it's ninth of a version or whatever. It's like, oh, this is so cool, man. This is all bullshit, but goddamn, is this exciting? You're like,
this is a fascinating presentation.
yeah. But some people just, like, my balloon was pretty much deflated after I took the whole thing in. It's like, okay, none of this ever happened, but goddamn, that was entertaining. But some of these guys, like, they never lost. It was like that first hit off of a joint. It's like, oh, they never lost the zeal. And I met one of those guys again. It's like, man. But a perfectly normal guy in every other respect. Goes to work, brings his lunch, loves his kids, has been married for 20 years. He's a normal guy, except when you talk to him about, hey, that 9/11 is coming up. It's like, yeah, you better have a gun in your car, man. They're going to try something again. Every fucking 9/11, I'm always got something with me because you never know what's going to happen. And then he'll talk to you about baseball the next time. Like, okay, we got one thing that we gotta run at hard. So, yeah. And then when you go, like, when we went to Gettysburg, we stopped at the 9/11 memorial out in that field in Pennsylvania. The Flight 93 went down, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, when you go see something like that and you see, like, all the names and pictures of the people and the debris they found, it's like, okay, if this is bullshit, this is like, I just couldn't sit in that room and be like, oh, this never happened. Like, no, I think this unfortunately happened. But I know they'd say, oh, they're getting to you, Nathan. It's the propaganda. It's like, no, I think this was about as bad as you could imagine of people really doing this. Yeah, so anyway. Loose Change, check it out.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Don't believe it, but
Oh, I like what was a blacksmith responds to Loose Change was a great YouTube video because he actually had the grade of metal they use to build the World Trade Centers.
yeah.
Like, I know that they say, like, jet fuel can't get hot enough to burn the metal away completely, and he goes, they're right, but I'm going to heat it up. And he had one of those heat guns, and he put it in a forge. He just heated the metal up to the temperature that kerosene could get it to, and he stuck it in a vise, put a pipe on it, and it just pulled right out of the way. He goes, that's 50% as hot. That's 50% to the failure point of this metal, where it loses cohesion. At 50%, it wasn't easy for him to bend it. He was a blacksmith, so he was a pretty strong guy, but he, like, just twisted it in half. Like, that's half its temperature. He said, I would use kerosene to heat it up, but I don't have enough carpet remnants to burn top here and suck all that out. But it's like, okay, yeah, that's probably what really happened. Blacksmiths know a lot about metal. Speaking of blacksmiths, Forged in Fire got dangerous this week twice. Have you ever watched that show?
No.
Yeah, it's the knife and sword making show, and it's pretty cool how they do it. But the guys will make the swords and or knives or whatever, and then they put them through torture tests. It's like they'll swing them at, like, like, say you made a Japanese sword. Well, they'll dress a dummy up in like Japanese armor, and they'll take your sword and just go at this armor as hard as they can to see if it'll break. Well, the one test they were doing with a knife where they were stabbing it into something, and the knife broke in such a way that the blade flipped up and almost hit the guy in the head. That was stabbing. And then the very next episode, they made, General Patton designed his own saber. There was a Patton saber that he carried because he was like a Olympic class fencer when he was a young man.
Yeah.
He knew all about swords, so they had all the design specs, and they're like, okay, go home and make this, and we're going to come back and test it. And this was a full-on saber, like, this long. This guy was swinging it at a wood block, and it broke right at the handle, and that blade came flying through the air and hit his neck. But it was like a flat hit,
Yeah.
so it just kind of gave him a little cut. But, I mean, it was like, oh, yeah, this guy almost... And it was the same guy. It was like, oh, man, this guy... You better look at his contract a little closely. Because he just had like a sword blade flying at
And
him.
you got the Mythbusters in there to build a robot to swing the sword instead of him.
Well, what's the thing they do in there with they use the Mythbusters bullet rig? Oh, sometimes they'll make a sword or a knife and they'll put a 45 handgun, and they'll try to and any knife of a certain, or if you get the metallurgy right, a bullet will split apart on any knife or sword blade.
Yeah.
So they use that same rig the Mythbusters did, and they line the gun up, and then somebody stands back and pulls it, of course, because you're firing a gun into a piece of metal. And it's like 30 feet away or whatever, and they'll show it like in slow motion. The bullet travels down and ding, breaks across the sword. And, the one guy's got his metal so hard that they couldn't tell where the bullet hit it, but they had it on slow motion camera. It's like, damn, that guy did a good job. You can't even tell where the bullet it just cut in half. Yeah, they've had auto swinging things too, when they know the likelihood of a failure on a sword's going to be high. But this was not like those are like broadswords and stuff guys make, which are actually really hard to make because they'll send these guys home with all their tools to make them. Well, guess what? Most of these people don't have forges long enough to make swords. They're just knife makers. So either if they have multiple forges, they'll put 2 or 3 of them together. But yeah, when they were making like the skinnier swords, they tend to have more luck with. But when they're making like the full-on like medieval, like the Crusader swords, those are really hard to make.
Yeah.
Because people just don't have forges that big. Because you can't really make. It's not really. There's not a big call for sword making in the U.S. in this country, because it's illegal as shit to have them almost everywhere.
I never got my sword. Technically, I could have had a sword for being an NCO.
Oh, okay.
It's the Mama Luke sword.
Now, what's the history of those?
Fuck, what is it? I think like Mama Luke's a place where the Marines were having a battle. I forget it. Fuck it. I'm a bad Marine. I forget the whole history.
I know it's a certain type of sword, though. Like it's essentially.
Well, it's you see, yeah, when you see the swords and like commercials for like join the Marines and stuff like that. That's the sword.
Yeah.
It's you only have it for like ceremonial things. Like
they don't actually use them in combat.
I mean, you could. But
There was a guy in World War II. There was a Scotsman who used a sword. I forget what his name was. He would lead he's like a sergeant or something in the British Army, and he just like, come on, and he'd have the sword. Fuck these guys. I mean, he was a lunatic, and he was known as a crazy person.
Well,
he used swords on people.
But usually, because like those swords cost those Mama Luke swords cost like $2,000, so people don't have that. So usually, what you get instead is you get a what are those knives? It starts with a K.
K-bar?
Yeah, you get a K-bar knife. That's kind of your ceremonial military knife.
They've made those on Forged in Fire before. Those can. They would do things like they'd have the guys make them and make that particular handle, which is a weird handle because that's like leather compressed
Huh.
and then it's burned out and stuff. And the reason it is so if you get blood and sweat on it, you don't lose your grip. The way those are designed, the way the blades designed, that clip point and stuff, they were taking hammers and pounding it into blocks of wood as the stress test. Didn't fail. It's like, well, you did it right. Because those knives are just something about the way they're designed and the metal, and I'm like, oh, those just made gut people.
Yeah.
Those are because when you have that clip point with a false edge, that's so you can move it around a lot. Because what's like double-sided knives get stuck a lot.
And I saw an interesting. It was like a mini documentary. It's you remember? Actually, well, first you should tell this other story. There's a. Oh, it was like there's like Indian Brigade in Burma in World War II, and the way they are described in this book, which I think is called Islands of the Damned or something like that.
Okay.
I can't remember. It was about a British guy during the Burma War, and he had that weird Piggott rocket launcher, like, or Spigot rocket launcher. I forget what it's called.
I think it is called the Spigot, maybe. Yeah.
It's a fucking weird rocket launcher. Anyways, so he tells stories of like those guys, like they really like their what was it, Calibri swords, those curved ones, like Indian. So they didn't care for rifles, and so like when they like engage the enemy, they just throw their rifles to the ground, and then just like chase the enemy with swords in the forest.
Yeah. And that'll get you running too.
And then they come back with like the enemy's guns and be like, "Hey, you guys want these things?" But no, it was fuck it. Generation Kill. You have Colbert, the main character that Alexander Skarsgård plays.
Okay.
So that like real life guy, I believe he like ended up being a gunnery sergeant, but he's retired now from the Marine Corps, and he's telling the story about oh fuck it is, they're basically like the first guys into the Marines. Like they get on like a paddle boat and they go to the shore like with like K-bars to like sweep the shore for like mines and shit like that. Raiders, that's what they're called. Like something or maybe they're just called Raiders. That's what they're called. And so like when a guy retires and he was a raider, what they do is they go to the armory where you turn in your paddle, because the paddle is government property. It's not yours. And they steal the paddle and then like make it like do a bunch of ceremonial stuff to it and give you the paddle stolen from the armory as a ceremony for you were an indispensable person in the military.
Right. Huh.
And that was also great because there's like this intermittent part where he's outside just at his just outside the house shooting range. So you just walk outside the house and start shooting from his back porch. Right. And then like he shoots all this stuff, and then he's like, he's not like it's a lot of the mini documentaries are not necessarily like pro military. And so there's this funny part where like he shoots it, and then like, yeah, you're just gonna leave all that fucking brass there. Don't pick that shit up, because like whenever you do a shoot in the Marine Corps, like you spend like an hour just picking up brass and making sure it's all gone. It's just like, yeah, you just leave that shit there. Don't pick that shit up at all. It just seemed like a fun like fuck you to like history, or all this time you spent in the Marine Corps. Weird grudge.
Yep. You want to talk about Local 58?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing this weird. I'm doing this thing now where I try to find the weirdest stuff I can find on Reddit, where I don't think I'm going to go to a website that's just raw child pornography. So I try to just select just creepy, like strange ideas. And one thing I found was And I was always a fan of the fake emergency broadcasts, and I really became a fan of them after Hawaii had a kind of an infamous fake emergency broadcast that
Yeah.
somebody pressed the wrong button and all of a sudden missile incoming, 10 minutes to whatever. Um, so there was, and I know there's a whole backstory here, and I'm not really, I know there's a guy who runs like a horror channel. His name's Chris Straub. It's his production company called Chainsaw Suit. And I know there's like a whole horror thing, and some of this is like those enhanced reality games, and this isn't it, but this guy produces videos like this.
Okay. Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, the thing with this is like the premise is alien invasion, but it's real David Lynch, like just a bunch of weird shapes and images coming at you, and messages from this hijacked station called Local 58 WCL VTV in Mason, Missouri. It's a made-up place and thing. But one of the things that like grabbed my attention was the government PSA called Contingency, which was from the 60s. And it starts off, let me get some of these images up here so I can, I don't want to play it. The wrong link saved.
Yeah, I figured the guy had moved on to something else because this channel hasn't been active for like a year, but it only has like 6 videos or something like that. But
Yeah, it doesn't. It's intermittently updated. It's not really a story you can follow. But the weird one was like a message from. It was President Johnson's signature at the end. So these are like old PSAs from like, Cold War era, I guess we could say. And I'm trying to find the one. Oh, here it is. American citizens, the worst has come to pass. Despite the sacrifices of our citizens and the might of our armed forces, the United States has been forced to surrender. And it's like, oh, that's a weird message. Then it gets even weirder because it says things like, what is it? Like, you have been, the time has come. It's supposedly there's this part of the government called the, why is none of this links coming? Oh, the U.S. Department for the Preservation of American Dignity. Got like a sword and a feather with like a shield and some scales on it. And then there's another message from the president, like it's time to act. It just says weird stuff like, what are they talking about? It's like, because they've already announced, that we're surrendering. Like that was the first thing, and then it was like, you will each be remembered. Use whatever method most available to you at the time. Your courage will inspire others. There's nothing to fear. It doesn't say anything, and then it gets to the next reel, or the next, and these things come off, pretty fast. But it's like access to a loaded firearm is ideal. Place muzzle, hole of gun. It's upward in the roof of your mouth. Thank you. Join your neighbors, your family, your God. And then it says and these are like very, how would you say, like Fallout kind of 50s, 60s, kind of weird animations.
yeah.
If there is time, assume the victory position. Front lawn, face up, feet together, and it shows a guy laying down under an American flag. And it's like, oh, this is really weird. And then it gets even darker. If you could imagine that, it says, remember, what is it? Take care of children and family pets first. And then it goes to the next thing. Infants and pets, the smallest patriots. It's just like, what the fuck is this? And then the most, like, the thing that sticks to you the most is it says, this broadcast will continue until there is no one left to hear it. Because you're basically, if you don't do it, the police are going to do it. So, yeah, we'll preserve American dignity by all committing suicide. And we will take America with us. and that's the most like shocking one. The rest of it's just kind of weird alien stuff, and you're driving down, and the GPS is telling you what to do, and it kind of reminded me of
Yeah, like what it's like the stop now, turn lights off, and then and then turn lights back on, and you've reached your destination. It just keeps repeating it over and over again.
yeah, and then an alien appears, and then the car goes in reverse, and it's all real smudgy though, kind of that kind of film work. It reminded
Well-
me of that Trent Reznor album, that Nine Inch Nails album from the early 2000s.
What, year zero?
Yeah, it kind of had that sort of vibe to it. That part of it did.
Yeah, it's pretty clever for what it does, because it seems like all you need to do is like get an editor and like get some like, you know, pre-roll or some other video out there, and you just kind of add these weird interstitials and like pretend
Yeah.
like it's a UHF broadcast or whatever, and then like
Yeah.
it's, oh, this is very effective, and like it doesn't require like hiring actors and getting footage and getting a filming permit or doing all this stuff. Although that one with the car is probably more of that, but there's other stuff where it's basically just like images and words
Yeah.
and static or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff was either stuff they produced on their own, or it was stuff that was available in the public domain. Like the made-up PSA and all that. That was stuff they did on their own. I don't assume there's actually a government like thing that they never promoted.
Mass suicide, that'll show them.
We take America with us. You will be remembered. Yeah, and I mean, we're skipping around a lot of stuff. It's just go to YouTube, experience it. It's about 6 to 8 videos.
Also, something vaguely Videodrome about it.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It immediately like, oh, this is the weirdness I'm looking for. This kind of I have no idea what this is.
It's kind of like that weird broadcast where the guy was, oh fuck.
Dressed as Max Headroom. in
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
in Chicago. Yeah, they've never figured out who did that. Yeah, it does have that kind of guerrilla element to it, and it manages just to be overridingly the feeling of dread watching these, and the creepiness is really good for. I mean, it's essentially something that's like not.
Well, it seems like this would be like ripe to turn into like those VHS short story horror movies.
Yeah,
Like, just do that.
do a what do they call that? Anthology around this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's. I mean, apparently the theme here is alien invasion. Don't look at the moon. I don't know. And then there's the whole real sleep thing, and yeah, it's. Go to YouTube. It's Local 58. Check it out. It's just something weird from
There's
that
a-
internet culture.
There was a weird cartoon on Netflix, and I believe it's it's like a cartoon made in like South America or something like that. I don't know which country. But it's a cartoon, so you know.
Oh, the Carillion frequency.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah, that's an odd one. Yeah, that's from Argentina, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. The guy's from what's that one they do here that's like the PBS? It's like the creepy one, but it's funny. Night Vale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think the Night Vale people discovered them or something, because I've heard of the Carillion frequency was, I think, started off as a podcast,
Yeah.
and they got translated to English in a podcast, and then it's, yeah, I've seen that. It's that kind of stuff. Because I watch that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, that's my thing for this week. The rest of it was just like the weird internet murders and like strange YouTube channels that supposedly have all these conspiracies behind them. And it's like I don't know. There's a lot of strange stuff out there when you look for it. And I'm not even looking for the strangest stuff. I'm not going to like ISISdeathporn.com or something. Like there's some really fucked up stuff. But I don't, that Tor browser is so slow, I don't like to use that a lot. So. Plus, I don't need to go to the dark web to be entertained.
It's plenty. There's plenty of internet entertainment on the internet that I'm not watching
Yeah.
to
there's
go
all-
in search of stuff that won't entertain me at all.
Yeah. Oh, rabbits being smothered? No. that doesn't- Serbian genocide? Nope, nope, that's not my thing. But yeah, this stuff's it's fun. I like this. This really, captivated me for a Sunday. For a Sunday afternoon, I'm like, what am I seeing?
Oh yeah, you said you watched Avengers: Infinity War.
Yes, yeah, I watched that finally after about 2 years,
So what'd
and
you
it was fine.
think?
There was nothing wrong with it. I was entertained for 2 solid hours. I knew what was going to happen. I think the one guy's Thanos' henchman died a little too quick. I would like to see more of that guy.
Oh, a weird like magic guy or whatever.
Yeah, the Doctor Strange, anti-Doctor Strange guy.
Yeah.
He seems sort of interesting. That was the only thing where it's like, he's out of it, huh? Okay. Thought he'd stick around a while longer.
Well, there's time travel next time around, so.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. Probably get around to that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird movie because it's not really about the Avengers. It's really a Thanos movie.
Yeah. It's about Thanos getting the shit beat out of him in a lot of different ways.
I'm helping all of us.
Yeah, it's the morally it's like, well, Thanos is right, but he's also wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he has a solution, but it's not the one that's like ever worked before.
Oh yeah, that's the interesting stuff they get into with the next one, where it's like, here's the result of that. It's like, oh, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily terrifying. It's just like, oh, I think all the worlds are gonna end.
Someone did something on
Because Endgame like that starts out. It's basically just like, what was that HBO show where like everybody goes to the rapture? The Leftovers or whatever.
Leftovers,
Yeah. Cause the first like 15 minutes of Endgame is just it's the leftovers in the Avengers universe. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, I want to see the next one.
And then the Spider-Man movie, the second one, it's pretty funny how they kind of like follow up with that because, they bring everybody back, but it's when everybody gets brought back, it's still 5 years later, but the people when they get brought back, they are from 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so like there's this kind of funny stuff in the start of the Spider-Man movie where like they're doing like this school report and like this one guy's like they explain how all this how the weird age thing is working. It's like, yeah, my younger brother's older than me now. It's fucking weird.
Somebody did a video about like what if that actually happened and just about Earth. And this guy actually did like this. I mean, this guy must have gone deep, and he must have had some buddies that were mathematicians. Because it's like, what would that really be like? And they said, well, in North America and parts of Europe, it would be like, that's weird. A few people disappeared. In like China and Indonesia and India, it'd be like a fucking nightmare. Because proportionally, that's where most of the world's population is. But you're assuming it wasn't. It was the movie's assuming like it's global. I guess. But these guys,
it's universal.
Yeah. Well, they were just doing the Earth, and they were like, oh yeah, it'd be like people. It would be upsetting here, but in places with really dense populations, that would be where the bulk of the people would disappear from. If you were just trying to eliminate X amount of people, it would have to be that many people over there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like half the population of every country evenly, because he had this big chart that showed like the global population distribution. The U.S. and Europe are somewhere down here, and then you get to like China, India, Indonesia, they're way up here. It's like, yeah, it wouldn't really affect us.
Well, Bob's not here anymore.
That was it. I never thought of it that way. I was like, huh, okay, these guys did some math. But then they talked about like all the equipment and stuff and the dangerous things they have over there that people would. It's like we'd have to fly people over there to figure out how to shut down the nuclear reactors and stuff they have because they would lose so many people. It's like, oh shit. And all those kind of dark solutions always assume that, like, what, there's not going to be any progress. So it's just like, yeah, from where we're sitting right now, this looks bad. So technology and nothing's going to advance. So we're just stuck now with this temporal now. So, but yeah, I enjoyed the movie. There was nothing wrong with it. It was funny enough, despite its subject matter, to carry it through. So we'll see. Watch the next one. And what are they doing after this?
Oh, they have a whole like roadmap.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
The next Thor movie sounds weird and fascinating.
What's the deal with that one?
I think it's supposed to be an alternate reality where fucking what's her name?
Natalie Portman?
Natalie Portman will be Thor.
Okay.
But then there's another one where it's like an additional Thor movie, and then Natalie Portman's back, and it's like something to do with breast cancer. Like,
Okay.
so I don't know. I don't know which movie's which. But yeah, I think it's like, yeah, there's like Thor 4, Thunder and Lightning or something like that. I think that's what it's called. But also there's going to be another. Eventually, there's going to be another Guardians of the Galaxy movie because I believe. Fucking what's his name? Something Gunn.
Oh, the director's coming back.
Yeah, James Gunn's coming back, but he has to finish shooting his Suicide Squad movie first. I'll look at it. Marvel Road.
Some of my best, my favorite parts of the movie were the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor.
Yeah.
When they were, because when the Quill started imitating his voice just to be obnoxious, and he would call the Rocket Raccoon. It's like, Rabbit, give me more power. Weird way of talking. And then Peter Dinklage is the giant dwarf.
Yeah.
Forge master or whatever. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
You got a Black Widow movie coming out, which I don't know where that takes place. That secrets. She dies in the end game. So I don't know if she gets brought back somehow or if that's like just a side story like before all this happened. Then you got a Falcon Winter Soldier movie.
Okay.
Which that will basically be like a new Captain America movie. You have Eternals. No idea what the fuck that is. You have Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. No idea what that is. You have WandaVision, which, you know, the lady that can, like, what's her, Scarlet Witch? She does, like, all the weird red stuff.
Yeah.
That's her movie. Then you have Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which I hear that's supposed to be basically like a horror movie, but like within the Marvel universe with Doctor Strange.
I could see that.
You have a Loki movie apparently. Again, no idea because you know he was dead. Yeah. But you know he's died like 3 times before, so.
Yeah.
There's one that's just called What If with a question mark, which I don't know if that's based on anything or if they're just like fucking around. Like, hey, we don't even know what's coming up next.
Yeah. We'll just keep printing money as long as you guys keep buying tickets.
Then you got a Hawkeye movie, which no idea what that'll be. And then you have here Thor, Love and Thunder, which yeah, I've heard like different things about it. So I believe that what's Waititi, how you. Something with T.T. that guy.
Oh, yeah, the guy who just did the weird Hitler movie, yeah.
Yeah, so I believe he's coming back for that, so it'll probably be interesting. Because, yeah, That Thor Ragnarok movie is really fucking enjoyable.
Yeah, that was a great movie. I was not expecting to like that.
I mean, like all the Marvel movies are fun movies, and I don't necessarily say like the Thor Ragnarok is like the best of the Marvel movies, but it's probably like the most fun.
Yeah, well, you're not, it's
It's
not.
got a look, and it's like it's immediately sarcastic.
Yeah,
He's like hanging upside down, and he's like kind of spinning out of frame. It's like, hold on, wait till I come back. It's just like, it's very self-deprecating, but also cool at the same time. It's fucking weird.
and I like the Jeff Goldblum character because he's just kind of the weird, just a weirdo. I mean, he just does
Yeah.
what Jeff Goldblum does best. Is I'm a weirdo.
And they made up, so there will be a third Spider-Man movie.
Oh, okay. Decide not to leave a couple billion on the table.
Yeah.
Okay, good for them. That's how you do it, boys. What we're supposed to be doing here. I watched El Camino.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't finished watching it yet because I was kind of balking at saving it for our feature or not. So
Yeah, let's save it for our feature
okay,
because it's cool. It's worth talking about in that context.
all right.
I didn't know that was Robert Forster's last movie.
Oh, it is, huh?
Yeah, because he died like the day it came out or was released.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll save that one because that's a good one to talk about.
Oh well, I mean, you've seen positive on it, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, well,
If it sucked, I'd just have you talk about it.
no, it's all right. I mean, it's just kind of a weird concept, but yeah, it works. That's an interesting universe to visit. I didn't realize this movie was 10 years after. I didn't think Breaking Bad ended that. When did that end? 2000.
I think it started in 2007, so
Yeah,
2015. Because I think there's a break in between one of its seasons.
2013 is when it ended. 2008 to 2013.
Okay.
So yeah, so that movie's like 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah, I haven't caught up on Better Call Saul. I think I've missed like the entire last season. I think there's another season, so I'm like 2 seasons behind.
Yeah, and I'll do that like I did Breaking Bad. Just knock that out in a month.
It's a really good show. So
Do that, just like The Wire. It's the best thing ever. Okay, just sit down and watch it all.
well, I wouldn't say like Better Call Saul is as good as like Breaking Bad, but the thing about it is that because it's a prequel and you know like how things end up, the show has like a weird sense of dread because like everybody in it is a new character and it's like, well, these people aren't around at the end of Breaking Bad, so what fucking happens to them?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay, we watched a movie this week.
Yeah.
Watched the Zach Galifianakis comedy vehicle Between Two Ferns, the movie.
Directed by Scott Ackerman
Yeah.
of Earwolf fame and Comedy Bang Bang.
Okay, I knew him from something. Yeah, this was kind of a fun extension of something I mainly watched Funny or Die videos of.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I didn't know anything about the background of this other than it was just
Yeah, you don't really need to know anything. This is basically like when SNL makes a movie of one of their skits, like this is kind of that.
Yeah,
Except the skit belongs to Funny or Die.
right. And Will Ferrell's in it, which is kind of funny because he's in Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. And like, what's going on with Will Ferrell?
I don't know.
Is he like doing anything?
I think he's just.
Is he just done?
Well, I mean, they actually own, like him and McKay actually own Funny or Die, right?
Well, there was like a split recently. Like one of them split off from Funny or Die.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm like vaguely concerned. Like, what's going on with Will Ferrell?
I mean,
Or maybe it's Adam McKay's fault. Who knows? Or maybe it's just amicable.
it could be. I mean, Will Ferrell. I've never heard he's an asshole. So.
Well, it just seems like he's like, I mean, he had a stretch of like horrible movies, but he still like occasionally would do something interesting. But
Yeah.
just did too many of those money grab movies.
Well, yeah. It's like, how many times can you? Hey, you want $20 million? Yeah.
You know, people really love like Step Brothers and Talladega Nights, but they haven't really reached that. Oh yeah, that fucking Holmes and Watson movie that was terrible.
Yeah. Well, you know it's bad when they go to Netflix, which is always like the last resort dustbin. It's like, yeah, we're going to take a pass on this. It's like, what? So, yeah, I don't know what Will Ferrell's doing. Besides, being married to a Swedish supermodel wife.
It's probably a sweet gig.
Or actually, oh wait, yeah, no, she is Swedish. Yeah. Remember he did that weird thing, no, we're just totally off between two ferns. Let's go down a Will Ferrell wormhole here. Remember when he did that live stage play where he played George W. Bush,
Yeah.
but he argued with himself about every fucked up thing George W. Bush did
Yeah.
on the play? That was kind of a weird turn.
I think they put that on Showtime.
Yeah, it was. I remember I watched it, and it was like, it was more sad than funny. It was just Will Ferrell played George W. Bush, but he was exactly right about the stuff he was saying. Like, he was on point, and then it was kind of like, oh, this isn't funny. George Bush was an awful president, and Will Ferrell's just confirming that. But yeah,
Hey, did you see Vice at all?
Vice.
The one about Cheney.
Oh no, I want to. I just haven't gotten
Okay.
around to it yet. I don't
So
know where you can see it.
I think it's on demand and stuff like that right now. But I remember that was another Adam McKay movie. I really liked the big what is that called? The what the fuck's that called? The fucking Money Crisis movie. Is it The Big Hit or
Short.
Big Short? That's it.
Yeah.
Big Hit's a crazy Mark Wahlberg movie about assassins.
But yeah. So anyway, Between Two Ferns.
Yeah, I don't know how much I have to say about this. But I thought it was good, but like I said, it's like kind of like an SNL movie where it's like trying to extend the fiction of the one bit into a universe, and so. But I always like the Fern bits where it's like essentially like a mini roast where it's like, what's the most awful thing you can say to a human being and engage their. Although,
Yeah.
like, I think like what really makes the movie work is like when you get to the end and they basically show the outtakes where they're laughing. And it's like, because like in the movie, like they portray everything as like everyone just takes it seriously and is offended by everything, and he's just saying horrible things to people. And it's like it kind of just feels. It's funny and also weirdly uncomfortable, but then when you get to the end, and they show the outtakes. It's like, oh, it's okay. We can breathe a little bit.
Yeah, Zach Galifianakis is a weirdo. For me, this is kind of a this character, because again, they were just shorts. Because I remember like Barack Obama was on this,
Yeah.
Bill Clinton and Bruce Willis, and there were some people, and it's like, oh, this is kind of like Borat. Like, it's just gonna make people uncomfortable. But with this, it wasn't. This was scripted, obviously.
Yeah.
Whereas with him, it was just like, I'm this weird foreigner. I'm going to come up. So it seemed to have like a more controlled version of that.
Yeah.
But then, and Zach Galifianakis is someone who I don't entirely embrace his humor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like with Baskets and stuff, it's like, oh, this is just too fucking sad to be funny. It's like, I can see why this is good, but I cannot see watching this for hours at a time. And a lot of his other like his stand up like is just weird. It's
It's bizarre. Yeah.
It's that weird, like, what do they call that, alt comedy from the 90s.
Yeah.
Like it was like Patton Oswalt too far. Like, Patton Oswalt can go there, but then kind of bring you back. Where Zach Galifianakis just goes into space. I'm not saying I don't like him, but it's just not like my go-to for humor.
Yeah.
And this was never really crossed into that because it did make you realize it's like, oh, this guy's just a defective person. It's like he says this stuff because this is just how he thinks, and he has no awareness of anything around him.
Well, it's like I'm gonna interview these really famous people that I have absolute contempt for because they're more famous than I am.
Yeah, I'm just kind of angry at these people. Yeah, so that was because then when he goes to Hollywood and he acts like an actual talk show, all his original friends were like, "Oh, we hate this. No, we liked it when you said awful things to people because it made everyone uncomfortable, and that's because we knew you were really uncomfortable." Or there was some explanation like that.
I like the one where he's interviewing Matthew McConaughey. He's like, I heard your dad died having sex with your mom, and you said you want to go out the same way. I think you need to set boundary with you and your mom.
I couldn't believe. Couldn't believe that. And I liked it, like there was like stunts in that because the pipe started leaking.
Yeah. And they do like a little like before this all happens, and like for some reason he wants the studio soundproof, and so she's like sticking caulk in like every corner
Right,
of the.
you turn the recording studio into a fishbowl.
Yeah.
With caulk, and him and Matthew McConaughey are floating around. It's implied Matthew McConaughey died but was brought back to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. It's like, how did they get him to go along with that? I don't know how they got anyone to go along.
Well, I
with
mean, it's like 5-minute bits. They could probably go to where they were at. It's like, oh, you're filming a movie? Like, we'll show up with 2 ferns and a couple tables and shoot this thing.
it. Yeah, it was funny.
Like the one with Benedict Cumberbatch where he's like, what was some like, does having a British accent help hide the fact that you're a bad actor? And then when you see the outtakes, he just like bursts out laughing.
What was the one with Paul Rudd that I couldn't believe he said? Oh, it's like, can you teach other people how to hide the fact they're a Jew or something?
Yeah.
Shit like that. Like, God damn.
What was the way? John Hamm. He's like, what was like? Did Matthew McConaughey open the doors for stupid hot people to make money? Or I can't remember that one.
Yeah, there was something like that. John Hamm seemed to be really into it. Even in the regular one and the outtakes, he seemed to like be having a good time.
It was John Legend. He said something like something about La La Land and help white people explain jazz to black people.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, there was a lot of good moments in it. I don't know how much I cared for the story part.
No, yeah, I didn't really.
I don't think it was meant for. I mean, the beginning it was kind of cool and weird. It's like, oh, because this guy really thinks he's doing something good. Because I always thought, like, my vibe of the character from just watching the YouTube shorts is like, oh, is this like really a person? This is some weird thing?
I do like part when they're traveling around. The ferns get the front seat, and then everyone else has to sit in the back.
Yeah.
I like the camera operator. He's always ready to call Zach Galifianakis a dick, but then at the end of the scene, it's like we're all friends, but we hate each other. It's like weird, and he's got the secretary or whatever, or producer lady. She's just like up for everything. I like the part where she keeps calling like was it Tessa Thompson? Like they keep calling her Tesla, and she's like, my name's Tessa, and she's like, I drive a Tesla. And she's like, no, that's the car.
Yeah, I like when they go to and they steal Peter Dinklage's Fabergé. Yeah, there was some. It was. I mean, it was a enjoyable movie.
Yeah, it's funny. You
It's
can watch
fun.
it. There's not a whole lot to like reflect upon.
No, the outtakes are priceless.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like that kind of if you like that real cringy, weird humor, but in a more less like raw version than Borat, scripted Borat, a little more down key than that, because Zach Galifianakis is not like overtly playing a character, because he's
No.
just Zach Galifianakis
Yeah.
things. So it's
I mean, he's playing himself, but
yeah, some weird version of himself.
yeah, because it's not like he's Zach Galifianakis, but he's not necessarily like
The successful comedian.
yeah, yeah.
He's actually what he is some guy from North Carolina that just is a weirdo, but a different kind of, just a bitter, angry, insecure weirdo.
Did you see that SNL thing where about Oscar the Grouch that was making fun of the Joker trailer?
Oh, is David Harbour is like if Oscar was a
Yeah.
like a homeless street psychopath. Did you see the father and son podcast thing?
No.
Yeah, that was a fun. It was that was the same show as David Harbour and some younger actor, and it was basically like a microphone stand with two microphones like this, and what it was is like you can do a podcast with your son because you never really talked to him any other time, and like David was saying stuff. He's like, I don't know, I tried to be the best dad I could. And he's like, it's not like there's books or anything. And his son's like, oh no, yeah, there's lots of books, Dad. There's like hundreds of books about this subject. And then it would just like transition to other scenes where the son was like, well, Dad, you know, basically I kind of live my life to please you. And it was saying how you could throw to a commercial because it's a podcast during on. And David Harbour just kind of looks really sad, and then he goes, "Okay, now Squarespace." So they do all the like podcast advertisements, so you can just if you come into an uncomfortable moment with your father and son during a podcast, you can throw to a commercial. And it says basically this is a 3-year thing. You can get that so you can get through that awkward period before you can just get drunk together. So, yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah, I did like the Oscar the Grouch show. It's the Joker. Place called Sesame Street.
Yeah, I like when he's like almost like in a drunken stupor singing the Sesame Street song. Do you know how to get to Snuffleupagus? Snuffleupagus is a pimp. And
Yeah.
Elmo's like a crackhead. Like Bert gets stabbed in an alley for not giving up his rubber ducky or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the typical SNL shit. It's just, but it's one of their, pre-shot bits. So and they use like the same staircase from the Joker movie. So it's just really well done.
Yeah. That was it was funny. I remember it now. Like I said, check out the father-son podcast setup.
All right, well,
That was pretty cool. One more thing I was going to ask you about this week. Let's talk politics.
again.
Oh yeah, the Milan regular season conference games undefeated this year.
That's good.
It's only the 7th time it's happened since the 1920s when they started playing football there. This is the 7th time it's happened. So next week is a non-conference game, and they're supposed to win that, and then to the playoffs, where unfortunately they just get squashed like a grape because it's it's a little tiny school. Actually, it's not that small. It's bigger than any high school I went to, but you just you see those pictures of the other teams.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you have like 1,200 students to choose from, and
Yeah.
There's going to be 9 of them that are 7 feet tall, 300 pounds.
Favorite watching my son play this year was when he was blocking against the guy who was 6'3" and 263 pounds. So all I did was just hold on to him and drag him to the ground. That's all Grayson could do. Because my son weighs 165 pounds. It's like 5'8", 5'9", maybe. And this kid would help him up after every play. Here, come on, I know this sucks. Get up. It's just like, yeah. But at least, so far, all the arms and legs are intact. So I'm not complaining. That was it.
All
That's
right.
all I have. So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.